Hello and welcome to Rogue Artisans and Crafters, winner of the 2018 Southern Oregon Television Awards for Best Arts and Culture Show. I'm your host, Glamour Dave Nienow. We welcome you, our viewer, to our new season of 2019 shows where we feature local artists and craftspeople here in Southern Oregon, and we talk to our featured artists about how they came to their art, what drives them as artists, find out stories behind their art process, and how their work as artists influences their lives. Today we feature local clay artisan John Dodero. I met John while visiting the annual Clay Folk Show. I found John Dodero's style of clay pottery work absolutely beautiful and knew at some point that I had to have him appear on the show. And so today we will talk to John Dodero about his life as an artist and the work that he pursues today with his art. And so we welcome John to the show.
Well, thank you for the kudos. I appreciate that and the opportunity to be here, Dave.
Yeah, well, I'm very happy to have you on because I am just absolutely amazed at the uniqueness of the design of the work that you do, and wanted to be able to kind of talk to you about how you came to doing the art that you do, and the process that you do for designing your work. We've got an incredible display of your work here on the show. And so to begin with, how long have you been working as a professional artist?
Well, I started doing pottery in 1970, but I dropped out in 74. So I guess it's going on probably 45 years of being a studio potter. Yeah.
And what attracted you into pursuing pottery, as your art medium?
Well, I like everything else in my life, I kind of fell into it. I was, like most type A personalities, was a workaholic, and I was an operation manager for a small company, and commuting an hour each way to Redwood City from Los Gatos down in California. And my wife decided to enroll us in a pottery class, which I never did anything like that before I even thought about it. I always worked with my hands. But it just kind of clicked. And within like 6 months, I had basically lined our bedroom with plastic and built a loft over the front door in our house, and put a studio, a small studio there.
Yeah. And so you've been doing this for quite a while now, and as I looked over your website, I mean, you've gone through various stages, as any good artist should, really, and I looked like your early work was kind of like Southwest influenced, from what I saw on your website.
Yeah, the earliest was kind of Peter Mac stuff.
Okay.
And that could have been because of the pharmacopoeia in the Bay Area at the time. But I think a lot because of the kind of the movement that was happening then. There was a lot of interest in the native culture. Mm-hmm. And philosophically, I aligned with that. So I really started looking at a lot of the pieces from Maria of San Ildefonso and Nampeyu, and from Sikyat Kai. And a lot of potters at the time were following the more Japanese, Bernard Leach, more traditional look. And for some reason, I just fell in love with the Native American designs and started doing that. Yeah,
well, as someone that's done a lot of graphic design in his life, I mean, I've found a lot of appeal in the various Native American design forms that can be found and discovered. There's a lot of they provide a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, well, what I liked about it is there's a rhythm to the design. They're really graphic, which was at the time was really good because it was a good way to be able to design things, because I never could draw. I got kicked out of every art class I was ever in school, and so that and. There's the symbolism behind it is really powerful, where you don't have to do anything figuratively to put a design in. It's more of a symbolic way. And what I found, especially after I got into the Membres designs, which was a prehistoric culture in southwest New Mexico, there's information that you attain while you're doing those designs, the geometry, the way they use negative space, and just the cadence of the designs, it's really fulfilling.
Yeah, and so in part it sounds like you kind of got into kind of learning some philosophical ideas through that process, right? And that kind of influences the artistic process that
Well,
you do.
it informs the work for sure. I mean, to start out, it was an obsession.
Yeah.
It wasn't really so much about learning. It was something that was, like I tell people that want to get into a craft or that kind of thing. It's not that you want to do it; it's because you have to do it.
Right.
And it was one of those kind of things that it just kind of drew me in, and that was part of that vortex at the time. And the other part of it, I think, that's really important that a lot of people miss when they pursue a craft, whether it's 2D or 3D or whatever, there's got to be an outcome not only in the piece, but it has to go somewhere. And there has to be a monetary aspect to it, so you have to fashion your work in a way that meets a market.
Right.
And in the case of the Native American thing, I was fortunate enough to be on the beginning of a curve there, because in the 70s, that's when it was really huge. Mm-hmm. Arizona Highways came out with those classic editions in baskets and ceramics and that type of thing. So there was actually a market for it, and there are few people doing it. Right. So I was able to kind of monetize it, not to be crass about it, but that's really part of the business.
Well, it is. I mean, as an artist, all artists should be able to make a living from the craft and talent that they pursue.
Sure.
And so and all successful artists that I know early on learn that they've got to do what they have to do to monetize that product that they're creating.
Yes.
And
it plays into the creative process too. And again, I was fortunate being in the Bay Area at that time. There was a lot of crafts fairs that were pretty high quality, and we had people with money there,
right? Yeah.
And that were willing to kind of support that. So you do a show, you see what people were attracted to, you'd make more of that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it wasn't so much that I had to provide all the energy into the creative process. The actual mercantile experience was part of that creative process, which I think it was really important for me. Mm-hmm. It might not be for everybody, but it was, and having to support a family was part of it after I was dumb enough to quit my job.
Well, I find that, that one simple decision by your wife to say, let's go have this pottery class. Yeah. It turns into like a transformative event in your life, really.
My wife was a transformative event.
Well, if she's a good wife, that should just be like part of the course.
Yes. It's been interesting.
Yeah. Now, you've got the style of what you do. From my understanding, it's called raku.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Now that stems from an original Japanese style.
Yes.
Is my understanding.
Yes.
Right. And but you have you've kind of taken that base Japanese style and kind of transformed it into what you're doing today.
Yeah, well, I kind of bent it to my will, I guess.
Yeah.
But the Japanese style, the real difference in the American raku and Japanese style raku, as I understand it, is Japanese raku, you take it out of the kiln red hot and you put it into water, and which is very Japanese. It's either you're going to make it or you're not, kind of thing. Yeah. Where American raku, and there's lots of stories how this happened, but somebody dropped it in some leaves. Some people say it was Paul Soldner. And the carbon from the burning leaves got driven into the bare clay and the crazing and the glazes.
Okay.
And that's where the difference was. And then people started taking it out of the kiln, putting it into garbage cans with all sorts of combustible materials, and there was lots of flame, and it was something that people did in the beach and that kind of thing. So it was a really fun, immediate thing. for me, it was that I was working in black and white then. So with a Native American designs, fine lines, and these symbolic designs.
Right.
So it worked really well for what I was doing, because I would wax out areas and then glaze the piece, and the waxed out area would be black.
Okay.
And so it was a way to develop these designs that I wanted to do, and it was a kind of a fusion of an East and West thing, which I really love the idea of. But on the other hand, it was a very good decorative motif, because it wasn't so specific that if you had one of these pieces, you had to be Japanese or Native American. It was a fusion of the two.
Right. So it sounded like the process that you've gone through is kind of like very much an experimental process. And is that still like today? Is that still like kind of an ongoing thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's what's, I think ceramics is the greatest craft there ever was, because you've got a lot of dials to turn. You know, you got the firing, you got the clay, you got the glazes, you got the designs, you've got texture, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And this is something that I feed off of. And even if something, my daughter worked with me for several years, and she would always get mad because I'd get something running right and then I'd change it. And it's just in my nature to be messing with things all the time.
Yeah, well, you know, it's like when I've gone to the Clay Folk show, I mean, that's a tremendously great show.
Oh, yeah.
To see such a wide variety of what is essentially, you know, everyone's using the same base thing, which is clay, but yet there's this wide, huge variety of interpretation that comes from whatever process the artist is using to create their work.
Well, that's it. You're starting from the dust, basically.
Yeah.
And, you know, where a lot of crafts, not to degrade them or anything, if you're a leather worker, you buy a piece of leather. If you're, you know, you're starting with something that has a structure to it. With clay, there's basically no structure to anything that you're using, whether it's the glaze, the clays, the fire, you know, so, and it's, you know, all the elements put into this one piece. And Clay Folk that's why that all ceramic show is such a great show, is because you can see this one craft and how it manifests across the board.
Yeah, and it's just such a tremendous showcase of incredible talent that is here in the Valley.
Well, we used to be kind of, you know, a secondary show to the OPA show. Not to say the OPA show isn't a great show, it still is, but Clay Folk has kind of risen to be the premier show in Oregon, all pottery show. And in having it in Medford, coming from one that knows it's very difficult to sell handcrafted items in this area, because we don't really have the population numbers or population mix to really support it. It's pretty incredible that it's come to this point.
Yeah. Well, we have some images of your work that we can talk about. So if the control room can bring up our slideshow images, and we'll talk about some of the various pieces.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Me talk? Okay. Yeah, this is something I've been doing the last few years, and it's definitely a takeoff of what I've been doing for a long time. But I'm a real fan of Cubism, because it's symbolic and there's kind of an ethnic content to the general sense of it. And I call this dynamic Cubism, which is kind of silly, but I have to put names on things.
Yeah, well, when I first saw these at the Clay Folk show, I mean, my first impression that thought came to mind was like Picasso and that style of modern kind of art patterns and designs, right? And so it's kind of it's cool to see this being transformed into a 3D style art form.
Yeah, well, the cool thing about it, again, is I can't draw. And so these designs are nothing that I think about initially. I just basically spin the piece and scribble on it, and my schizophrenia kicks in, and I see these images come out. And it's really kind of cool, because I just kind of am able to fill in these images that come out of this basic design. And again, it sucks you in rather than you having to put it on there. It kind of draws you in, or me at least.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the next.
Yeah, this is basically the same type of design, and over the years I've got like about 30 different glazes that I use
Wow,
on my
okay.
more commercial line that I do, and so I've been able to use all these different, and I love corresponding colors, because I've learned over the years that colors are really important to people, not only decor-wise, but they have certain colors they like at a particular time. And I don't know, I've told this story before, that people will walk up at a craft show and be holding this piece and it'll match their clothes perfectly.
Yeah.
So in this particular design mode, I'm able to put these combinations together, you know, to kind of so people can identify with them a little bit more, and use them for decor items.
Yeah, let's go on to the next one.
Yeah, this is more my standard work that I've been doing for quite a while, and I do a lot of urns, which is a big part of my business. It's really important from my perspective for any craftsperson to have an item that they make. Just making stuff and expecting somebody to identify with it and buy it is great, but you don't sell a lot of stuff. So probably over the last 25 years, I've gotten into this business of making urns, and also using these, you know, bamboo, because I like mixing the media.
Right.
With not only the clay, but using the stone, you know, semi-precious stones and bamboo and the sinew, and putting these things together. And it's been, it's something that I like, and it seems like, you know, other folks do too.
Yes, and this is another different style.
Yeah, this is another very traditional Japanese glaze. It's called a Nienow, and it's a high feldspathic glaze where the colors of the clay can burn up through it. And it's a design technique that's been going around lately around potters, where you throw a cylinder and then you put sodium silicate, which is kind of a liquid glass, on it, and dry it, and then scratch through and then stretch the piece out, and these designs kind of manifest. And again, I don't have to draw it, I just scribble on it, and you get these really great textures. And I call this my kind of geocosmic series, because it's kind of a thing. They could be geologic, or they'd be you know, more astral, which I kind of like that. Yeah, this is ancient stuff here. This is something that I was doing in the 80s, kind of the peak of the Native American thing. That was more the fine line. This was the same thing, where I was doing, had a couple ladies that I was working with that was doing pine needle basket weaving. And again, the combination of the two. And this is a bronze that I did, one of the bronzes that I did back in those days when bronzes, you know, people were selling rentals and all, you know, the big bronze pieces. So I was trying to get on that market. This is kind of a volcano design that I've been doing for decades, and living here amongst the volcanoes, it seems like it was an appropriate, you know, geologic design. You can't beat nature, basically.
That's right.
And this is a more Native American, I call this one the Firebird design. And this is stuff that kind of hard, I still do these pieces, not as much as I used to. And it's a combination of the raku black with the crazing and the different colored glazes. It's been nice. And this is another Nienow piece. It's not for everybody. I really love the stuff, but they're just kind of molten, and you know, you just kind of fire these things up really high, and you know, hope something cool happens. Yeah, and this is a little combination picture. Well, we used to have a gallery in Jacksonville. It's called the Village Gallery, and this was a promotional piece that I did back then with a platter, and we sold some jewelry, some friends that we knew, and a basket pot, and another one of the bronzes.
Okay, on to the next.
Yeah, and this was, I call these basket platters, and I was trying to kind of emulate a basket design with ceramics, because I think that ceramics probably came from baskets originally.
Yeah, because it definitely looks like it's like a clay, like that kind of a basket form. I mean, it just looks like it was like, you know,
It's kind of woven.
Yeah, it really has that pattern to it. It's really amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Oh yeah, this is my chop.
Yeah.
It's the running man not knowing which way to go.
Yeah.
Just, yep, there's the flame.
Yeah.
That's my raku kiln, which is just a small kiln. That whole top lifts up and you pull the piece out and then you see if you can singe your eyebrows off.
Right.
And this is a picture of a show we did called Geometry. Tom Glassman and myself, he did these photographs that were very geometric, and I used these pieces, and we had this down at Art Presence in Jacksonville, which is a really nice gallery down there. A lot of local folks show there, and I show there from time to time.
Yeah. Well, that's like a really great selection of the depth of what you've done.
Thank you.
Now, in general, how does someone go about wanting to like purchase one of your
Well,
pieces?
I make it as easy as possible. If somebody can call me up for sure, but I do have a website. I'm on Etsy. I'm on Amazon. I have several online retailers that I sell through. But you can go to doderostudioceramics.com or just put that in Etsy if you're more comfortable using that, or Amazon.
Right.
But I'm pretty easy, very, and I do have a showroom at my house that people come out for a studio tour and check out and see what I have, that way. So it's lots of lines in the water.
Yeah. And in general, what's the price range for your art?
I have, some tea bowls that I do for, 45 to 65, and then goes on up to where larger pieces like that are around 700 or 800. These guys, they run around 5 or 6. Something like this is probably 250, 300.
Okay.
I try to cover it. I mean, it's not inexpensive, but
reasonable, at least.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah. No, considering the quality of what you produce, I think the pricing that you offer is really actually kind of amazing.
Well, thank you.
So,
well, again, you got to sell the stuff. I don't want it building up in my storeroom.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You got to make a living.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. I mean, my mother and I have actually talked about getting one of your urns this year for my father's ashes.
I'm honored.
He passed away about a year and a half ago. His favorite color is red, so we're intending to get one of your red urns this year.
Well, thank you.
So
thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything that we haven't covered before we kind of wrap up here that you think you want to like tell the audience about your work?
Well, I think I've probably gone over that. I just encourage people to kind of delve into their own creative process because it's a fulfilling thing to do. And if anything that I do with my work, one thing that's really important is try to maybe inspire people to find their own way with the medium that excites them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it definitely, I can't say enough. I'm just really impressed with the uniqueness of what you do.
Oh gosh.
So, so I'm really happy to have had you come on the show and to be able to talk about your work, and I encourage my audience to check you out online.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, thank you, David. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, man.
So I think we basically kind of come to the end of the show. And so we've reached the end of our show, Rogue Artisans and Crafters. We want to thank you at home for joining us and learning about our featured artist, John Dodero. We wish to thank John Dodero for agreeing to come on to the show to discuss his life as an artist. I'm your host, David Glamour Dave Nienow, and we will see you next time. We wish to thank you for watching Rogue Artisans and Crafters. You can watch this program on demand by visiting rvtv.sou.edu. You can also follow our show on Facebook by visiting and liking our official show page. Just search for Rogue Artisans and Crafters. follow me, David Glamour Dave Nienow, online at my YouTube channel and on Facebook. If you like this show and wish to support me in my show productions at RVTV, you can visit my Patreon page at patreon.com/glamourdave. You can watch this show on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. and Thursday evenings at 11:30 p.m. We want to thank our crew who have made it possible to put this program together. Producer and host David Glamour Dave Nienow is winner of the 2018 Southern Oregon Television Awards for Best New Producer and for Best Arts and Culture Show for Rogue Artisans and Crafters.